Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's going to be a review of the new Wet n Wild palettes. These are supposed to be a new formula and a new layout and all of that goodness. They have 4 of them. These released along with a whole bunch of other stuff. These were the only things that I personally picked up that I wanted to try. So these are what we're reviewing today. So if you want to see my thoughts on the new Wet n Wild palettes, then just keep watching. Okay, so we're going to go palette by palette and break it down and talk about the different colors in it. So the first one we're going to start with is the Comfort Zone, because I feel like this is the one that a lot of people are most interested in, because this is like their cult classic palette, and I feel like a lot of people are really interested in how they changed the formula, how they changed the colors, and all of that. So we're going to jump into that one first. So, you open it up, and this is what it looks like. It's the exact same palette, except they added 2 mattes on either side for transition colors. So there's swatches of the 2 new colors. The first thing I want to point out is all of these are very inconsistent. The 2 mattes that are in this palette are totally different. This brown is not super pigmented, it gets a little patchy, but it has like no kickback. And then the camel color is super pigmented, super buttery, but kicks up a ton of powder. So that's like the main theme throughout all of these, is that all of the mattes are very inconsistent. They're either really hard and not pigmented, or they're really soft and really pigmented. So I'm going to put a picture on the screen now of the comparison of the new color, or the new formula to the old formula, and show you kind of the differences of the colors. So in all, I think they're very similar, but they're really just not the same. Some of them really are. Some of them are like exact on, and then some of them are just like totally different. So the first difference that I noticed is that the colors in the original palette feel like butter. Like they're just velvety soft that you just feel like you can just keep swiping and it's just gonna keep, it feels like butter basically. And I don't get the same texture from here, which isn't that big of a deal because most of them swatch the same. It's just, that's just the first thing that I noticed was different, was they just don't have the same intense buttery softness as the originals do. There's only one color in here that I felt like actually got improved with the new formula, and that's going to be this shade right here, which is like a black filled with glitter. So there's finger swatch and regular swatch. They seem really similar. However, the original swatches more like a matte black with a gold shimmer overlay, whereas the new one swatches like a really intense matte black that's filled with the shimmer. It's like the shimmer is now embedded into it, and it's much more noticeable, which, I mean, if you're going to do a matte with shimmer in it, you kind of want it to be noticeable even if it is black. So it's much more shimmery and intense than the original. That color is actually one of my favorite out of all of these palettes. It's one of my favorite colors in these. It's the most beautiful, intense black that's just like filled with this gold shimmer that's just, it's so much more intense than the original. It's crazy. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is the Not a Basic Peach. So this is what it looks like when you open it up. It's fairly neutral, and then you've got this like pop of blue and the pop of orange there. Again, like I said, they're all very inconsistent, so some of these mattes are powdery and some of them aren't. However, I do feel like they're all on the same board as pigmentation goes in this particular palette. The Comfort Zone palette is the only one that only has 2 mattes in it. All the rest have at least 4. So there are the colors swatched right there. They're all very pigmented. They were all very soft. Some of them obviously kicked up more powder than others. Like the beige color there and the brown color here kicked up a lot more powder than the others, but I still think they're all very pigmented and blend like a dream. Like, it takes zero effort to blend these out. It's ridiculous. So this palette actually has my favorite color and my least favorite color in it, which is interesting. And it's actually two of the shimmers. So my favorite out of every palette in here is this beautiful gold right here. It is just the most smooth, buttery, delicious color that I've ever seen in my life. Like, it swatches like pure butter. It's indescribable. It really is. It's crazy how pigmented and just gorgeous it is, but also just how soft it is. Like, it's crazy. But then you go from that to the one right below it, this peachy red. It is hard and gritty and has so much excess powder. I don't even know if you can see that, but it, like, you put your finger in it, it just like has all this excess to it. It almost reminds me of like a loose pigment rather than a pressed shadow, and I feel like this is one of those colors that's going to do its best job when you foil it with like MAC Fix Plus or some sort of setting spray, because it's too powdery and gritty to work well as a shadow on its own. So there's it swatched right there. You can smooth it out if you just like keep rubbing it in and keep getting all that powder rubbed in, but it's very powdery, and I feel like it's just going to work better foiled than anything else. So beyond those two, the rest of the palette I actually think is just I don't have a full consensus on how I feel about this yet, because like I said, it's got that gold, which is just like gorgeous, and the mattes are fantastic, but so the brown I swatched earlier, it could be better, but I do think it's pigmented enough. It's got a shimmery cream color, which two of these have matte creams and two of them have shimmery creams. I wish they would just do matte creams across the board, but whatever. And it's pigmented enough. It's just a basic matte cream. That's that brown swatched again, by the way. It's just a basic shimmery cream. It's really nothing to write home about. The next color is this peachy, shimmery thing that annoys me. As soon as I saw it, I knew that it reminded me of Candied Peach in the Sweet Peach palette. Let's see the shade right here. It is a peachy pink covered in gold glitter, and it's actually one of my favorite colors in this palette. However, in the Wet n Wild palette, it is just lacking so much pigment. It's ridiculous. It swatches almost skin colored, like it's so light in pigment. You really have to build it up to get anything out of it. See that right there? That's 3 layers of swatching. 3 layers to get it there, and it's barely noticeable. It's ridiculous. But just like the Too Faced one, once you actually like start blending it out, the gold shimmer disappears, so you're really left with just a basic pinky peach. So it's almost an exact dupe of that one, except for the fact that you have to build it up more. The next shade is this like burgundy shimmer, which is kind of actually very similar to the one I just talked about that was like my least favorite out of all of these. It's just as powdery and It's just as powdery and gritty and kicks up so much excess, but it's also really easy to blend out, works really easily, and it's a beautiful color. So it's just a matter of, do you care about fallout, or can you get over it and do your eyes first? And then this blue. This blue annoys me so much because it could be an absolute gorgeous color, but it's just like that peach one where it has zero pigmentation. So the swatch here, that's 4 layers of swatching to get it to that pigmentation. So that right there is just one swipe across the pan and swatched. So look at that comparison between this and that, when that's 4 layers and that's literally just one swipe. They could have done so much better in this color, and it annoys me that they didn't, because they took the risk to put it in there, but they didn't make sure it was good enough, which I'm just like, I don't understand why a company would do that. I really don't. It makes 0 sense to me. Okay, so the next palette is going to be Nude Awakening. This is what it looks like when you open it up. It's your basic, everyday nude palette. You've got your taupes, your camel browns, you've got your black, some really basic shimmers, and then this nice muted burgundy color. So there's the 2 transition colors swatched. As you can see, they're very pigmented, they're nice, they're buttery, they're very soft. And these actually don't kick up near as much powder as the other mattes do. Okay, so the rest of the mattes are really good except for that burgundy color. I don't love. It's a little less pigmented than I would want and a little patchy, but the black is like, holy hell, this black. So as you can see, it is very powdery. It's got a shit ton just like sitting in the pan there. I don't even know if you can see that, but it's very powdery. I've never encountered a shadow that is this powdery. Like, even the Subculture palette wasn't this powdery. But as you can also see, it is black. Like, it's pigmented, it blends out well, it's fantastic. It's one of the best blacks that I have ever come across. And it's one of those blacks that when you start blending it out, it doesn't become gray, which finally I found a black shadow that doesn't become gray when I try and blend it out. Like, I don't use black that often in my eye looks, but when I do, I need it to be black because there's a reason I'm going in with it. So that color, like, look at, I didn't go back in. I just kept moving it around, and that's how far it literally doubled it just from the excess powder. So as you can see, that burgundy really isn't very impressive. It's kind of patchy. It's meh. The cream is just a basic matte cream, but it's nice. It does the job that it needs to do. Okay, so after the mattes, you've got 5 shimmers that are all very similar to each other, except for this bottom one here, and then the one right up from us. You can barely even see those. They do look really beautiful in person. My problem is most of them are just a champagne pink in different levels of shades. So you've got this one here, which is a very, like, white champagne pink. And it's also incredibly soft. It's just like you put your finger in and you just pull up way too much. But it blends out beautifully. And then you've got these 2, a shade right up here and this shade. I'm gonna stop referencing the swatches because you really can't see them. So basically you've got this shade here and this shade here that are basically the exact same color. The one next to the black is a touch more pink, but they're very similar. The only one that stands out is this bottom one here, which is just the most gorgeous brownie shimmer that I've ever seen. And it reminds me a lot of the Stila Shimmer and Glow in Twig. It's like exactly the same kind of color where it's like this browny copper kind of color that is just, it's gorgeous. And then the last palette is going to be the Rosé in the Air. So this is what it looks like when you open it up. It's very similar to the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. So even though I'm sure most of you won't need it, here's a comparison of the two. They're obviously very similar. You've got that pop of pink, you've got the camel color, you got the orange, the brown, that lilac color. They're very similar. And this is actually the one that I used on my eyes today. So I'll take you through kind of how I did my look, and then I'll get back into swatches. So I went in with the bottom camel color here in like all over my crease. And then I took a little bit of the orange and put that on top of it just to blend it all and make it just a little bit more intense and deep into the crease. And then I took the brown and put that on the outer corner. This is probably the least pigmented brown out of all of the palettes. Instead of being like a nice pigmented brown, it's more like a light wash of brown that you can easily blend away, which I didn't love. And then for the lid. So I tried to go in with the muted lilac color, and that didn't work. It basically had zero pigmentation. It looked exactly like if I had gone in with a basic matte cream. So I tried to go over it with the pop of pink. No. This shade has just the worst pigmentation out of all of these. It's horrendous. Look at that. That's terrible. And that's me going over the pan like 4 times. Like, that is not a quality color. I don't understand how this made it through. I really don't. It's also incredibly hard. And it, like, you can feel how hard and ungiving it is when you try and swatch it. It's ridiculous. And this is one of those colors that you really can't even build up to get like a solid color out of. It's always going to be this muted wash of color that you can always see through. Like, it's not a nice opaque kind of color, which I hate because it's such a beautiful color. So I tried to put that on my lid. Did not work. I couldn't get barely any pigmentation out of it, so I scrapped that idea. So then I went over it with the champagne gold color right there, and this is just like out of the world beautiful. It's soft, it's buttery, it blends out easily like a dream, and it just, this color is beautiful and you can't even see it. It's giving it no justice, it really isn't. So beyond that, so this palette in general was just kind of a letdown to me. Like, I want to say the mattes are really good, but like half of them aren't. Like the pink, the lilac, the burgundy, they're just not there for the pigmentation. The brown, it's not pigmented. Even the 2 transition colors, they're not that pigmented. They're just, and you compare this to like the other transition colors, and these are nothing compared to them. I don't understand. I don't know if they wanted to put out a 4th one, so they just threw something together, but this one just, it doesn't do it for me, and it kind of annoys me that they like clearly tried to do a Modern Renaissance dupe and just totally failed, because this palette isn't good. So here's a few more swatches. Here's that brown. It's really just very dirty looking. And as you can see, you blend it out and it basically disappears. It's really a letdown for that brown. This shimmer shade, it's gorgeous, but like, there's 2 shimmers in this entire palette, and I don't think those 2 can save the palette when the mattes pretty much suck. This orange, I do think is beautiful. It's very pigmented, it's very soft, it's easy to work with. I like it. This burgundy color, this is actually a swatch built up twice. This is not the like main color. There it is, swatched once. That's like 1 swipe across the pan. You really have to build that one up, which I don't mind, but at the same time, it's like, I shouldn't have to. Like, there's plenty of colors out there in plenty of different palettes at both price points. high-end and drugstore that you don't have to build up the mattes to get a nice deep color in. And I'm just not willing to do that anymore at this point because there's too many options. Like this palette might have worked really well 10 years ago, but now it's at the point where like there's so many options at so many different price points that this palette just isn't cutting it anymore. And I'm really surprised that they even put this out because it's not a good quality product and it doesn't even stand up to the rest of them. And I don't really understand why they felt the need to throw in this fourth one when it didn't work. It really didn't. I don't understand it. So now for my overall thoughts. Obviously, you know that I hate this one. It's terrible. It's probably my least favorite out of all of them. Not a Basic Peach is a close second on the worst palette out of all of them. I like the color scheme. I like the way they did this. I like most of the mattes. It's just, these colors here are just very hard to work with, and I feel like Wet n Wild is like more of it's obviously super drugstore. I feel like a lot of younger beginner type of makeup artists are gonna be gravitating toward this, and I feel like those are just gonna be really hard to work with for someone that doesn't know about foiling and using a setting spray and all of that. So I don't like that they put those in there like that. This blue, I wish they had done better on it. It's not pigmented enough. I shouldn't have to do 4 layers of a color to get it to show up. That's ridiculous. It's too much. The mattes, I do think are beautiful, except for this one here. Obviously, we talked about it. I don't like it. But the rest, I think, are beautiful. This gold honestly saves the palette for me. Just me in general, just because I already own it. I'm not going to get rid of it just because I love the gold, because it's just so buttery and beautiful. And honestly, I can work with these 2 shadows because I do know about foiling and using a setting spray and ways to get around it. And, you know, I could use a glitter primer or a glitter glue. There's ways to get around it. It's just, I feel like for Wet n Wild to do something that needs advanced techniques like that, it's kind of shitty. Like, I didn't like it when Anastasia did the Subculture because it obviously needs a different type of technique than just putting shadow on your eyes. But like, they're a bigger brand. I feel like a lot of beginners aren't going to start with the Subculture palette, so that doesn't bother me much. But this is a very like beginner-based line and palette, and I feel like a lot of these colors just aren't going to be easy enough to work with. So all in all, Rosé in the Air and Not a Basic Peach, I wouldn't recommend them. I really wouldn't. On the other hand, though, Nude Awakening and the New Comfort Zone, I think these are beautiful palettes that they did such a good job on these. So obviously, these are 2, like, ends of the spectrum. This is very, like, out there. It's got the greens, it's got the duochrome. It's beautiful. And then you've got the super nude, super everyday type of palette. But again, it's beautiful, and you can get some gorgeous, dramatic looks out of these. But you can also get, like, super everyday type of looks. I really don't have that much negative to say about it. Like I said, some of the mattes are softer and kick up more powder, but if you just tap off your brush, it's really not going to be that big of a deal. All in all, these are my 2 favorites. These are the 2 that I would recommend to pretty much anybody. If you're a fan of the original Comfort Zone, I feel like you need to try the new one because they're very similar, and in some ways I do think this one is even better, but it's just going to be like if you're like an OG user, then you might be annoyed with the new, because obviously a lot of people like started with that palette. It's what they're known for, and a lot of people don't like when companies change their original products, which I completely understand. So I feel like a lot of people are going to hate this just because it's different from the original. But, I mean, they did say it's a new formula, so it's not like they're lying to us. So yeah, those are all of my thoughts on the new Wet n Wild products. I know this got a little long. I'm sorry about that, but there were 4 palettes, and there's There's 10 colors in every palette, so like it was gonna take a while. So anyways, I hope you guys like this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you next one. Bye.